Welcome, everyone. Energy is life, and much of the reality that we see around us wouldn't be possible without it. Yet, our way of creating it, using it, storing it, and distributing it has been heating and destroying the planet. Which is why I'm really excited to announce the next session on accelerating renewables, breaking barriers to triple capacity by 2030. We're going to be looking at this topic from an amazing mix and diverse set of perspectives, including tech, the city perspective, movements, and much more. My name is Matthias. I am the founder of ChangemakerXchange, a support network for social entrepreneurs, activists, and innovators. And it is my pleasure and honor to be today's moderator. Very quick show of hands. Tell me, do you believe that we're going to make it? 2030, triple the renewable energy capacity. Just, the higher up, the more you believe in it. Oh, I see some doubt in the room. That is all right. Well, the speakers obviously should raise their hand very high. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to start off with a keynote by Emily Teitsworth, the executive director of the Honnold Foundation. And just a little personal fact about her, in her 20s, she was a cowgirl. So maybe she'll reference that in her talk as well, but she's going to be up first, and then we're moving into a panel discussion. I hope you enjoy this session. See you in a bit. Emily, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I maybe have a PowerPoint. We'll see if it comes up. Anyway, today's session is about accelerating the transition to renewables. And I'm here to maybe complicate that topic a little bit for us. We are going to talk about speed, but we're also going to talk about equity. So I want to start with a little bit of good news. In 2023 alone, global renewable capacity grew by nearly 50%, powered by record solar deployments. Solar today, specifically, is 10,000 times cheaper than it was when it was first used on an American satellite in 1958. But the transition to renewables is about so much more than replacing fossil fuels with cleaner alternatives as quickly as we can. We have this unique generational opportunity right now to build an equitable, brighter world as we transition to cleaner and more sustainable forms of fuel. One of the things that I have learned doing social and environmental justice work for a really long time is that equity is not efficient, that inclusion and justice take longer and are harder to achieve than exclusion and injustice. I would say renewable energy can be a slow process if you consider equity. I think to illustrate why renewable energy can be this incredible tool for equity, I want to tell you the story of a community that my organization, the Honnold Foundation, knows well. On the remote border between Ecuador and Colombia, there are 60,000 hectares of pristine rainforest that are currently under attack by illegal gold mining and logging operations. But for the indigenous Coban tribe, instead of resorting to weapons of war, for them, solar is their tool of choice. Solar powers their remote motion-sensing camera traps. It supports their night patrol stations and their surveillance drones. They collect information on illegal activity in their territory using solar power, and they transmit that to the UN and to the Ecuadorian government to hold illegally acting companies accountable. One of the things that I personally love the most about the La Guardia, which is the Rainforest Protection Unit, is that all ages and genders can join. Elders are guiding and mentoring the next generation, and the next generation sees a pathway to use technology to enable them to continue their traditional way of life and their culture. For the Coban, solar energy is ensuring that they can maintain their culture, is ensuring that they can hold these illegal actors accountable, and it is ensuring that this pristine rainforest is protected for future generations and continue to act as a natural mitigator of climate change. There is no doubt that solar energy is making life better for communities like this all around the world. And this is why, at the Honnold Foundation, we support projects like this that are community-led and owned. Over the last 10 years since the Paris Agreement, solar energy and renewables in general have undergone a revolution. Solar is now the cheapest and most efficient way to transition to renewable energy use, and they're on track. Solar and other renewables are on track to meet half of the world's electricity needs by 2030. This is something that we should be happy about and excited for the future. And I know as an American standing on stage before you in 2025, I might seem a little bit too optimistic about renewable energy's future. There's no doubt that the Trump administration, my government, is going to do what it can to slow my country's contribution to meeting our collective goals. But 10 years after Paris, the clean energy revolution cannot be stopped. It is being driven by local communities, government, policymakers, businesses, philanthropy, and advocates. The technological and economic shifts are too powerful for any one person or country to stop. And while the clean energy revolution is in progress, it's not yet working for everyone. Today, 45% of people around the world still live in energy poverty. That means that nearly half of the planet lacks access to clean and affordable sources of energy to meet their basic needs. And we're not talking about the energy to mine Bitcoin. This is about turning on a light at night, maybe plugging in your refrigerator or charging your phone. So these kind of projects are really important, and it is true that utility and grid-scale approaches are essential for us to meet our energy and our climate goals. Private investment is going to power a large swath of the global population. But these approaches are not going to meet everyone's needs. In many places, like communities across the Amazon, there's little to no interest in being hooked up to a grid at all. There is no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to renewable energy. In order to ensure a just transition, we are going to have to find and fund a plethora of renewable energy systems. And it is also great news that there has been so many resources poured into this renewable transition. But you can see from this graph that the difference between private and venture capital investment and philanthropy is huge. And I think this is because so often we like to think of renewable energy as an infrastructure problem to be solved by the market, and not a human opportunity to be seeded with philanthropic capital. Thankfully, at the Honnold Foundation and our partner network around the world, we have seen countless low-cost and locally led initiatives that can begin to fill this gap. Our approach includes grant making, capacity building, and amplifications for grassroots organizations and communities on the front lines of climate change around the world. We have become specialists in finding and funding brilliant solutions by local leaders, helping them build proof of concept so that they can then take these ideas to scale. And I think this is something that gets at why I believe that community-centered philanthropy is so important when it comes to the renewable energy transition. When we think about our role in this transition, although the amount of funding that we're providing compared to VC and private investment is not as much, our role really is to take risks and to try new things that traditional investors might not. And hopefully some of those ideas do get adopted by the market and taken to scale. Truly, I believe when we think about solar energy, it does so much more than turn on the lights. We like to say that solar power builds social power. I want to talk about a few examples from our partner network around the world to tell you a little bit about why I think this works, why it is important when we're talking about renewable energy and accelerating the transition. Number one, community solar is cost effective, especially when we think about off-grid solutions. The World Bank estimates that for nearly 500 million people around the world, off-grid solutions are going to be the best and most economical way to provide clean energy. Our partners on the Navajo and Hopi nations in the United States, Native Renewables, are a women-led organization that decided to take on energy poverty in Native communities across the United States. We don't always think about this as a first world problem, but in the US, in Native communities, there are tens of thousands of houses that live without access to any electricity at all. Walia Jones, one of the founders of Native Renewables, told us that she realized that if the government was not going to support their energy needs, Native Renewables was going to have to figure out how to power their community using the sun. They have taken on this burden of powering 10,000 off-grid households in indigenous and Native communities around the world, 100 houses at the time. And this solution is so low cost and easy to deploy compared to grid scale and utility scale projects. Community solar also creates jobs, and it creates jobs that stay in the community. One of the biggest challenges that we've faced with communities in the US that depend on things like coal, that it is very difficult to continue to build jobs if you bring in large utility scale and outside solar developers. So our partners in West Virginia, Coalfield Development, decided to lead the coal to solar transition from the grassroots up. West Virginia in the US is a place that receives 92% of its power from coal, even today. 1 in 4 children in the state live in extreme poverty, which is one of the worst rates in the entire US. And so over the last 10 years, they have converted tons of infrastructure that was first dedicated to coal into solar. And this solar has, in turn, created over 1,000 jobs across this very rural state. And these jobs have stayed in the community and will continue to power the state and address extreme poverty for years to come. I think it's also important to note that renewable energy and community solar creates jobs, and not always just renewable energy jobs. Our partner, Asociación Proporis, in the Peruvian Amazon, decided to use solar to power an aguaje fruit processing plant. And this processing plant has supported hundreds of jobs in this very isolated and rural area. They coupled this with a bespoke curriculum around marketing and commercializing fruit, and it has led to increased income for this whole community in a place where there are very few other economic alternatives. And one of the things that we face, the huge problem when we're thinking about climate change, especially for rural and lower income communities, is the worsening impact of storms and natural disasters. One of the things we've seen time and time again with our solar partners is that they are using solar energy to adapt and prepare for worsening storms. In New Orleans, in the southern US, one of the most hurricane-prone areas of the entire Western Hemisphere, Feed the Second Line, one of our partners shown here, is building a network of 100 minority-owned restaurants. They are taking these restaurants, providing them solar power, and these solar-powered restaurants are saving their owners money over the long term. But then when the lights go off and disaster hits, they agree to serve as community resilience hubs, enabling community members to charge their phones, to get first aid, to refrigerate medicine, and to support community resilience regardless of how difficult storms are. And I think with all of these benefits, I just want to highlight the fact that this solution is drastically under-deployed in comparison to all other forms of renewable energy. The Honnold Foundation is an intermediary funder, meaning we raise funds to give grants to smaller organizations. And for us alone, we have received over 2,500 requests for funding and partnership from 150 countries around the world in the last 5 years. This represents several $100 million of potential catalytic community solar. And as an intermediary funder, we're currently only able to deploy between $2 and $2.5 million per year. This is a solution that works, that's complementary to PRIs and for-profit forms of investment, and it's drastically underutilized. And I think one of the things that we're really looking for when we think about renewable energy transition and human development is that win-win, something that builds economic capacity and local economies while also protecting the environment and mitigating climate change. Community solar really is that solution. One of my favorite examples of this is the indigenous-led organization Cara Solar in the Ecuadorian Amazon. They had this brilliant idea to build a network of solar-powered boats to replace diesel transportation. They tried to get traditional investment, they tried to get bank loans, they even tried to get grants from larger foundations. Everyone said no because it hadn't been tried. They came to the Honnold Foundation, and we were able to support the creation of their first prototype solar-powered boats and the training of the first cohort of indigenous solar engineers and technicians. This solution has led to the entire region deciding to ban diesel river transportation and to ban further road building into their pristine rainforest. So not only does this solution transition them to renewable energy, build local economic and workforce development capacity, it also prevents road building, which is one of the key conduits to illegal logging and mining. I think when we think about community solar and renewable energy in general, we should think about solutions that benefit both people and the planet. And from my perspective, community solar is that solution. I want to close today by celebrating how far we have come since the Paris Agreement and embrace this drive to build big, audacious goals and to meet them. Our ability to build with speed and scale is critical if we are going to meet our energy and our climate goals. And the climate clock is ticking. But I think anniversaries like this one are also a really important moment for us to pause, listen, and reflect, and consider where we might go next. What our renewable toolkit looks like in the next 5 years before 2030. What might we be missing when we think about breaking barriers to triple capacity by 2030? There are so many opportunities and possibilities out there. Whether you're on a solar river or a conference on the Seine, it's going to take all of us. I think, when we think about the phrase, when you want to go fast, go alone. When you want to go far, go together. We have a long way to go to ensure a full, just transition to renewable energy, and it is only going to happen if we work together. The transition to renewables is about speed, of course, but it is also about equity. Future generations are going to judge our success today not only by how quickly we abandon fossil fuels, but also by how much we invest in using this moment to renew our vision for a just and sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you. No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Emily. What a wonderful start, and I love that we're starting from a community perspective. We are now going to broaden the scope of this conversation by quite a bit, and to that end, I'd love to welcome my esteemed 3 panelists. Please join me on stage.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful. Very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us. We have with us here today Mete Coban on my very right, who is the Deputy Mayor in London for Environment and Energy, overseeing the city's climate action plan. And just to humanize the speakers a little, I was asking for some personal facts before in the briefing, and Mete is an avid runner and will participate in the London Marathon on Sunday, so best wishes for that. And he's actually interrupting his training to be with us, so we feel very honored. Mete, it's very good to have you. We have with us in the middle here Gosia Rychlik, the branch manager of the Climate Reality Project, which many of you may know is the campaign and big global effort founded by Al Gore towards a net zero future, and we're going to learn more about that. And a personal fact about her, she loves diving and has a license since age 15. And last but not least, on my right, we have Hampus Jildenbäck, the Chief Marketing Officer of Flower, which is stabilizing the energy system. And one personal fact about yourself, I think you can see it from his build. He's a professional handball player and has been playing in the French league and the Swedish national team. Wonderful, very good. Tripling renewable energy capacity by 2030. Colossal task and effort, and a huge opportunity at the same time. We're going to explore this question from many different angles, and I would love to start with one question that each of you can answer, but just one sentence each. What is the mission of your initiative, your role, your work, in the shortest possible summary, and then we're going to dive a little deeper. Hampus, why don't you kick us off?
Hi everyone, nice to be here. I'm from Flower, which stands for Flexible Power, and we use large-scale batteries mainly to control them and make all the volatility and problems with solar and wind disappear, basically. So we get some stable, predictable, and cheap energy and electricity bills.
Managing volatility, thank you so much. Gosia, how about you?
Hi everyone, I'm representing Climate Reality Project. So we're an organization that trains regular citizens in climate science, climate solutions, and the impacts of climate change, and we empower them to become climate reality leaders who enact change within their local communities and thus creating a ripple effect of change globally.
Wonderful. Mete, wrap us up.
Thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here at Change Now. My name is Mete Coban. I'm the Deputy Mayor of London for Environment and Energy. And our mission in London to tackle the climate crisis It's a mission to achieve social justice, racial justice, and economic justice for working class communities across our city, because we know that those who've done the least to cause the climate crisis in the first place are those who are disproportionately suffering from the crisis that we see today. So for us, it's about achieving social justice for our communities in London.
Wonderful. I'm already excited to dive a little deeper into that. Hampus, let's start with you, and let's maybe start off with a positive note. We're a bit surrounded by negativity these days. We know some quite awkward news coming from the US and elsewhere, but let's start on a positive note. What is something that you think the general public underestimates about the status and the scope and the progress that we've made in terms of renewable energy and technical advancements, maybe from that perspective?
Yeah, no, but there are a lot of issues and problems, obviously. But I think, like, from our perspective at least, all the technologies and all the solutions are already there. And today we're currently balancing the grid, balancing and stabilizing the electricity bills and the energy consumption, using the technologies like advanced AI, energy trading, controlling of these assets. So for us, it's more a systematic problem, I would say. The technologies and the solutions are already there. It's about implementing it and creating an ecosystem that actually allows for the most efficient way to do this.
Yeah. We're going to come back to that, but biggest barrier in just one sentence, you say the solutions are there. We hear this all the time at Change Now. But like what?
I mean, it's complex. It's an inertia in the system to actually get things done and get it right. But yeah, we'll get back to that more later, I guess.
We'll get to it. Mete, I would love to move over to you and ask you, what do you think is the role of cities in this transition? Obviously a quite huge one. I think 65% of the world's population will or is already living in cities. What do you think is the particular role that cities can play, especially places like London that are so big and important for the world and the country?
So I think the energy transition is one of the biggest economic opportunities of the 21st century. I think the problem is often, as you rightly say, when we talk about climate change, because of course we talk about it from a doom and gloom perspective, for lots of people, and especially in my city, people feel it's quite overburdening for them. And one of the key things that we're focused from a London perspective, and of course through C40 Cities, which is a collective action of cities taking action on climate action, is about making sure that we're talking up the benefits of the transition, the opportunities that it could create for jobs, the fact that people like me and from my community, when I was growing up as a kid, my parents, when I go home and they open their letter from their energy bills and they see rising energy prices because we're dependent on fossil fuels, and every time something happens around the world, who pays more for it? It's working class communities. So I think for us, the energy security and the energy transition is a huge opportunity for how we can unlock benefits, tangible benefits for communities. And Emily, very eloquently through her presentation, spoke about community energy and community solar. We're already seeing how many community organizations in London are massively benefiting. I'll give you one anecdotal evidence of that, but we recently in London launched something called the Greener Schools Programme, where we've been funding solar panels, capital works across the whole of London. This is saving schools £18,000 a year on average, which they can otherwise use towards teachers' assistants and important resources for their children. So it's about the economic benefits as much as it is about the environmental benefits, and that's how we've been able to bring communities with us on our journey.
Yeah. I love how you, Mete, bring in the community and what it means for them in terms of financial savings, empowerment, inclusion, equity. And Gosia, I know that you work a lot with communities, with movements, with public support. I'm wondering if you could tell us what is something that decision makers, policy makers around the world may underestimate a little in terms of the public support and the scope of grassroots movements that are existing out there and that are mobilizing and doing things?
Are you asking for one thing? One thing only? I think it's challenging to put it in just one sentence or one aspect, right? Because there are different communities around Europe, for example, the area that we work in. So there are communities that are already willing to participate in that transition. They're convinced about the need and the urgency of the transition. So they would need rather the tools and efficient ways to actually implement those solutions. So they need more support. They need the tools, they need efficient systems, they need less bureaucracy, but then there will be communities that are not ready yet. They will need a bit more of building trust, I would say, and actually showing them the benefits that Mete talked about, right? So they need to understand that there are certain benefits coming with the transition, and only then, with building their trust, it will be possible to accelerate that transition. So I guess that a lot will depend on where a certain community is. It will vary across regions in Europe or the world. So yeah, I would say that it really varies and depends on the community. But if I were to pick one thing, I would say that possibly decision makers underestimate the role that communities can actually play, but they need certain things to get this done. So they need more support, they need more education on the benefits, they need simple systems, they need one-stop shops, for example, for establishing renewable energy communities. So they need the right tools and the clarity on the benefits to be involved in the transition.
Yeah, thank you, Gosia. We'll get to solutions and ideas because this place and this space and this community is all about it, but I think it's fair to spend just a few moments on the barriers, as I said. And looking back to you, Mete, and then going around the circle, you've told us just one story, and I'm sure you would have 20 of the benefits of implementing renewable energies in the community, £18,000 you said of savings per school on average. What stops us? What are some of the barriers that you come across? Why isn't this being done at scale, at speed, yesterday, if there is so much benefit to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is about having political will and the political leadership to be able to set out the framework and the investment that you need to see to happen at a scale. I'm very lucky, and I'm not just saying this because I want to keep my job, but I work for a mayor of London who's put environmental action really at the heart of his mayoralty. And I'm often pushing at an open door, and it makes it much more easier for me to do things in my role because, of course, he's very interested in what more we can do around action. But I think the issue here is we have lots of great pilot projects, not just in London, but other cities around the world. But what we don't have is how do you accelerate scale? So if you, for example, take, retrofit that we need to take across our city to really help tackle field poverty and accelerate job acceleration. If you think about, for example, how do you unlock much more private finance into really growing our green economy, £75 billion of investment that we need in London's green economy to reach net zero by 2030, what we're missing is the scale question. And we're missing how we can unlock the private finance that we need in terms of investment. So I think there's a job for us as politicians to do to be able to provide that framework and to give confidence, not just to investors, but also to communities around the future vision. And of course, I'll just say one final thing. There's a big role for cities to play because where you have, unfortunately, the most powerful person in the world who's a climate denier in charge of the most powerful country and the impact that's having on, on the outcomes of international negotiations, there's a big role for cities to play here. And there's a big role for cities to show that actually we're the ones on the front line delivering the change of what's being discussed internationally. And often when nations are delaying, it's cities who are actually delivering. So I think there's a big role for cities to step up and actually work with communities and really accelerate the transition that we need.
Yeah, wonderful, Mete. I'd love to turn the attention to you again, Hampus, and take a technological lens again for just a moment. What would you say is a breakthrough, a next step that needs to happen from a technological perspective, and what is sort of the barrier there that holds us back? Can you elaborate just a little?
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love to hear Gosia's perspective as well.
And everything ties into everything, and it's a bit of what Mete is talking about. I mean, the fossil-based energy system was based 150 years ago. It is so complex today. Everything from refining the oil, distribution, logistics, risk management, taking advanced financial products, and it has taken such a long time to perfect that. And now we need to do that in 10, 15 years with the renewable energy system. And there are so many things that needs to be in place here. And I would say, fortunately, we do have advanced technology now that we didn't 150 years ago. So I think it's possible to do this. But you need to get all of these different things in place all at once. And I would say that's the barrier. And I would say it's all from financial products now, regulations, legislations, and transportation and how to transport electricity and energy, creating local markets. And it's
So I'm hearing with all the positivity and hope that is justified, we also need to be a bit realistic about the complexity of getting there. Thank you for that perspective. Gosia, I'm wondering, Mete's touched on it, the community, the role of the citizens. How do we ensure that the public isn't just on board, but also plays an active role in that transition? How do we make sure that power is moving from the center more towards everyone? How can we bring everyone along that journey? And again, what are maybe some of the barriers that stop the everyday citizens from full-on committing and jumping onto this?
I think that this was actually tied into the previous question I answered, is that I would say the first step would be on education, but not the facts and data regarding climate change, as much as it is important. This might be not enough to convince people from the moral ground. So I think that we should switch that narrative or shift that narrative more towards speaking in the language of benefits. How communities can benefit from that. How is that going to support their energy bills, or like lowering their energy bills? How is that supporting their energy independence? Maybe they have some financial gain. Maybe the financial gain from renewable energy communities might be supporting their community directly with some investments in the community. So I think that's one part, which is about providing the right knowledge, the knowledge of the benefits. That's one side. But then the other is about removing the obstacles. And what I hear more often is that there's still lots of complexity, and there's a very difficult regulatory framework when it comes to implementation of certain solutions regarding renewable energy and energy transition in general. For example, in the EU, there's the Renewable Energy Directive that speaks about renewable energy communities. So, for example, there's a group of citizens that own and operate a solar panel, for example, on the top of their building. And so, ideally, there will be more solutions of this kind according to this directive. However, there's much of a challenge when in transitioning that to national laws of the member states of the EU. So now here's the problem. So we have the solutions, we have the technology, we have the will from communities, but then there's the problem of the complexity of the regulatory framework, and it seems just so difficult, so complex. It takes a lot of time. Permitting takes a lot of time. So then this all is a big burden on a community of people who just want to do something good for themselves, right? Yeah. So it just takes too much of effort to actually get going through this. So I think this needs to be simplified and made, well, again, much simpler, for example, by providing one-stop shops where people can learn about all the available solutions. They can get legal and financial support. So there's a way to actually give a help desk, a sort of a help desk for renewable energy communities, for example. Yeah. So I think that these are the most important two elements.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's very clear. I would have a last question in this section on barriers for you, Mete. What are some, you said you have a mayor, and I would agree from one step of distance that he is someone who's progressive in terms of renewable energies and including the community. But what are still maybe one concrete example of a barrier that the local government or the policymakers face? Is that the lack of public support, the lack of funding, the lack of policies? What sort of doesn't quite work in that machinery to fully make everything click and fall into place?
Yeah, look, I think some of what you just spoke about, the funding, the political support, all of that is, in many ways can be overcome, and there are solutions to it. I think one practical challenge that we face and barrier that we face, particularly in London, is relation to our planning policies and the regulatory framework to be able to accelerate the transition that we need, particularly in terms of about thinking about the grid. We have, obviously, the new UK government has a very ambitious target of clean power by 2030. We have a net zero target of 2030 in London, but we also know that there's an issue of capacity, and we know that we need to move very quickly. But we also know that the regulatory framework needs to move very quickly to enable us to do that. So I give you a practical example, but before I became the Deputy Mayor of London, I used to be a city councillor in a municipality called Hackney. And I used to run community energy and community solar. One of the things that we done, there used to be a cinema called, well, it still is a cinema called Rio Cinema. And they unlocked money to get investment around solar energy, right? And they couldn't put the solar energy because they couldn't get planning permission. And if we are hitting stumbling blocks like that per building, then 2030 is utopia, right? Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that actually our planning framework actually matches our ambitions in terms of our net zero ambitions.
Okay. Utopia is a good segue. I want to move into what I would call a rapid fire round of solutions from all of you. I know this is quite tough, but I'd love to ask you to keep it to just 2 or 3 sentences each for 2 or 3 of my questions. Starting with you, Hampus. What is a recent initiative or solution that made you go, oh yeah, that's the one that really works, something that works? Try and summarize that in the shortest way possible.
Can I say something from us, from our perspective?
Well,
What we do using large-scale batteries enables both funding and more deployment of renewable energy production, solar and wind. At the same time, when we stabilize that output of energy, we also create the stable and predictable energy bills for both large-scale and small-scale consumers, and it actually works. So taking both ends of that value chain is something that is working, and we're doing it right now, and we just need to scale it and make it more efficient.
Yeah, no, efficient batteries and the systems around it is definitely a theme that keeps coming up. Something that works, Gosia, that you would say, that shows real promise. And again, keep it very short if possible.
The first thing that came to my mind is an example of one of our climate-related leaders who is a city councillor in Katowice. So this is the capital of the coal region in Poland, my home country. And so just recently, Katowice joined the Powering Past Coal Alliance. So this is just very symbolic to me that a capital of a coal region joins a coalition that supports cities to get out of coal. So I think that it just speaks to me in a symbolic way, because it seemed to be impossible just a few years ago. So I think that this is just a sign of change.
That is a promising development. Mete, again, very short if possible.
Yeah, in addition to what I already mentioned around community energy and greener schools, one of the other things we've been doing in London is we've been through our accelerator, the Net Zero Carbon Accelerator, we've been developing a pipeline of projects that are ready to be basically decarbonized at a rapid investment level. And we've been able to develop a pipeline of projects of over £1 billion of portfolio where we sought investment from National Treasury and the National Wealth Fund. And this has meant that practically, in terms of some of our big landmark venues, like the London Olympic Stadium, now has 3,200 solar membranes on the roof of the stadium. That's enough to power every single event that takes place at the stadium. And that's just one venue, as well as many other landmarks that we have across the city.
It is probably many of these small, quote-unquote, examples that add up to what is that transition that we need. Another one, and again, the request to keep it as short as possible. What is a person, project, or community that you would say got it, inspires you, is an example that you can share, something where you're like, if you're asked for a good example, what would be something that the audience can maybe take away?
I'm a big fan of transferring something that was successful in one segment or industry to another. And I spoke to Johannes Schild, who is the founder of a digital healthcare company Kry in Sweden. And he was facing the exact same challenges that we do now. It's an old system with the doctors going to the hospitals to see them. And he saw that this will digitalize and this will change. But there was so many regulation problems and infrastructure problems and all of that. But they did it in, I would say, 5 or 10 years. And now Sweden is I wouldn't say mainly digital when it comes to doctor's appointments, but it has switched so fast, and it has worked together with the regulators to educate them to move towards this shift. So I think that's something that inspired me hearing that we are
distilling a pattern from a transformation from elsewhere and implementing. Mete, and then Gosia?
Yeah, a community that really inspired me recently is a community in London called, it's the Notting Hill, well, North Kensington community. For those of you who know London, you may have heard about the Grenfell Tower fire, which was one of the biggest tragedies in London, where over 70 people sadly, tragically passed because of inability of those in power to actually protect those people living in power. In return, the community has mobilized incredibly to really think about how they can create a much more thriving neighborhood and really putting net zero at the heart of their ambitions. And that ranges from a whole range of initiatives that are around our circular economy, energy efficiencies, around how we can create more access to green space. It's the whole package of interventions, but it's completely community-led. And my job as a politician, I don't have all the answers. My job is to enable those businesses, organizations, and communities that are doing already incredible things and think about how we can scale that across our city. But why it works really well is because policy is important. If you don't get the how we do the policy right, it makes the policy redundant in many ways. So it's so important that you work with communities to co-produce, co-design, really create a sense of shared ownership over your mission. So it's not just Sadiq Khan's mission for London or Mete Coban's mission for London, but this is Londoners' mission.
Yeah, politicians as enablers, I hear. Thank you for that perspective. Gosia, again, short and sweet.
Right. So I think that another example will be in the realm of coal capitals and just transition movements. So there's another climate-related leader who works in Kosovo. So Kosovo is actually sitting on the 5th largest lignite coal reserve. So there's a lot of temptation to use that coal. But she's been working on just transition and starting from the research on how people perceive just transition, moving away from coal to running workshops with community members, with citizens, with journalists to start writing about just transition in a more positive way, building more positive narratives. And ultimately, she's now about to open up a renewable energy community in her city. So I think it's just really inspiring to see that people who live in those communities that are really almost historically tied to coal are actually already moving past that. So it's just really incredibly inspiring to see that.
10 seconds left, so one word. If you had a magic wand, what would be one barrier that you remove? One word. And the floodgates of transformation would open. What is that one barrier you would remove?
Money.
Money, okay. Gosia?
Complexity.
Complexity.
I would also go for money, actually.
Okay, well, money and complexity. Thank you so much. That was really inspiring. Very practical and realistic at the same time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Gosia. Thank you, Mete. Wonderful. We are entering a quick 3-minute transition before we move to the next exciting and final keynote of this session. And it is my pleasure to be asking Jocelyn Lucas-Sandstrom from Green is the New Black onto stage for what is called an energy shift break to take a moment to reset and reconnect. Please join us on stage. Thank you so much.
The microphone, okay, perfect. Hi everyone, thank you. It's such an honor to be here with you today and to guide you through a moment of expansion to really amplify all the information and everything you've been receiving here today and to anchor it even more deeply. So this is going to be a guided meditation, and I invite everybody here to just gently close your eyes right now. And take a deep breath in, and then let it out. And now imagine I'm dropping a pebble from the top of your head into your head. And it's slowly spiraling down past your eyes, down past your mouth, into your throat, and into your chest. And in your chest, you see a luminous pool of light. And you see that pebble drop into that pool, and all the ripples coming out of that pebble. Then you see yourself standing at the edge of the luminous pool of light, slowly walking in so that the waters are up to your ankles, up to your knees, shifting, activating, releasing everything that's no longer serving you now. Continuing into the healing waters till they're up to your waist, up to your chest, continuing into the luminous pool of light till it's all the way up to your head, and you're completely submersed, floating in the luminous pool of light. Coming back to your truth, coming back to your power. Knowing that you can come here at any moment to ground yourself, detaching from the external world, to come into your truth, knowing the aligned action that you get to take that is going to powerfully bring your visions into reality so much quicker when you stay in your truth and let that power guide you. So take a deep breath in and out, grounding in your power now. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, bringing that power to the rest of this summit, giving you that clarity to make that bigger impact and ripple it out into the world. Thank you so much for being here and for all that you're doing. And if you'd like to dive deeper, you can always join us at the Conscious Festival Retreat in Bali. But have an amazing day, and thank you again for everything.
Thank you very much. And for the last section of this session, I have the big honor and pleasure to be asking Yuliana Onishchuk, the founder and CEO of the Energy Act for Ukraine Foundation, with me on stage. Yuliana, a personal fact about her, I told you that I asked this to people in the briefing, swam across the Bosporus once, and it's just one of many signs of the great leadership and resilience of Yuliana. And if I may add, just a personal fact, and maybe a bit unusual, but I just want to express my deepest compassion and solidarity for what the Ukrainian people are currently going through, especially after yesterday's attack again on Kiev. You have my heart, and I'm sure you're going to tell us some really interesting stories. Yuliana, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Change now. This phrase could easily have become the motto of my life. And yet, there are things that I would never want to be changed. My name is Yuliana, and I was born in 1993. I was born in a country that has existed for thousands of years. And yet, at that moment, it was only 2 years old as an independent state. I was born in Ukraine. And in my family, we spoke Ukrainian, which was unusual at that time. And I'm very grateful to my dad for that. Being surrounded by Russian language on the streets and in the media, I always recalled my dad's words. You are Ukrainian, and you have your own language. The first thing I would never want to be changed is my mother tongue. Because for me, language it was because for me, Ukrainian language was more just a language. It was my culture, my identity, and my quiet resistance. When I was 9, the first revolution in my country happened. As a kid, I was standing there with the people, and I heard and saw how thousands of Ukrainians went out to the streets because they didn't agree for what they were offered. They didn't agree with the Russian regime. We all were standing there, adults and kids, because we wanted to live in a country where democracy and European values prevail. When I was 20, another revolution in my country happened. A revolution of dignity in 2014. A revolution again against Russian influence. It was fierce. It was frightening, and people were killed on the streets. But that year changed Ukraine. Russia occupied Crimea. They invaded territory on the east. And truly saying, we all watched it silently. And then some years passed. I changed many cities and countries and even boyfriends. But I never wanted to change my willingness to live in a country where freedom is the core value. 3 years ago, I was 28. I was living in Kiev, and I had my family, my friends around, my job. My life was perfect. 3 years ago, the full Russian-scale invasion happened, and it is still now there. And that year changed, almost changed in 99% my life. But what actually didn't change were my beliefs. Beliefs that I want to share with you today. Beliefs that became the pillars of the foundation I established back to April 2022 as the response to the war in Ukraine. And these beliefs is everything my NGO and my team stands for. So first, I believe that a better future exists. I believe that no matter what happens, even when horror is outside your window, even when media shows devastation, even when you are at fear, the future must be built. So we decided to act immediately. It was only second month of war when we started to search for donors. We went to communities, we found schools, hospitals, because we wanted change to happen immediately. We wanted to be and initiate the reconstruction process of Ukraine, no matter what tomorrow will happen. Even if this solar power plant will be destroyed together with the whole team, we were there. Our first solar power plant for school was 20 kilowatt solar power plant in October 2022. Since then, we have multiplied our efforts and the impact we made. 23 hybrid solar power plants are built for hospitals and schools, and 22 are right now under the construction to be finished by the end of this year. And we are not going to stop. My second belief is that I believe in technology. So we decided to build solar power plants, but with energy storages, because we want to create a microgrid for energy resilience so that these buildings can stand the blackouts. But it's also about impact we bring for communities, a better financial help that they need right now to redevelop their territories. It is also about development of renewables in the region, and truly saying people even don't understand why they need these solar power plants with storages right now in Ukraine. Only a few months after, they truly understand how important and what is the impact, what the impact is there for them. And we build the solar power plants all around Ukraine. We started from the central part, but for me, the most important regions are frontline regions, the occupied regions, all those people that suffered the most and continue suffering. If I could, I would do it in occupied areas, but we can't. And I believe that this need of sustainable electricity supply to ensure that electricity is there is essential for Ukraine, and specifically for kids and for people that need medical help. But I also believe that bringing help in a material form as an infrastructure is not enough. So I believe in education. And together with the team, we not only bring infrastructure to communities, we share knowledge. We want kids in Ukraine to be grown right now with the new mindset, so that they start rebuilding our country sustainably, so that they understand why renewable energy matters. We created an educational course for sustainability and green energy, and we teach school students how they can contribute to a better future of Ukraine. And for now, we have educated for more than 1,000 kids, and we want to reach more and more. And at that educational course, we try to give them the answer on the question, how does the solar power plant work? What can be my contribution to that? And why actually I should care about nature? This year, we also decided that it's not enough to educate kids, but we should answer to a problem that you see on the screen. The scarcity of the workforce in Ukraine is now 5 million people. I cannot find people to my NGO for any position. It takes us for more than 6 months every time. And of course, as the renewables and demand sector, to be honest, we are lacking a workforce specifically in solar and renewable sector as a general. So we decided that we can educate women how to become, at least starting from a simple profession, not engineers, but how to be project managers in solar power plant construction. So we are creating an educational course together with our partners to help them to learn how to construct solar power plant from small size to a big size. The results will come at the beginning of the next year. And the last but not the least, and that's what a lot of people have told today here, I believe in cooperation, and I believe that we are not alone. And taking this opportunity of being here and being the voice of Ukraine today, because it seems that I'm the only speaker from Ukraine today, I want to say thank you for everyone who have ever helped in any way to Ukraine for all these 3 years, who helped us and who stood with us and believed that what we do matters. Because we know that the change is inevitable, but only the resilience in our beliefs can make a real change. And I believe that together with those who have voice over fear, who want to act when there is distraction, who is looking for solution when nobody does, with you, we can really build a better future for us and for our generation. And today I want you to hear this message that there is no sustainability is possible, and no development here is possible as long as we cannot guarantee a peace, at least in our region, European region. So I wish we all live in peace, and I wish that together we make better projects and we build countries and systems where peace, freedom, resilience, and specifically energy resilience, and sustainability are not just exceptions, are not something we fight for, but are the foundations of our lives. Thank you. Yes, thanks.
Yuliana, stay with me for a moment. Thank you so much, Yuliana, for your inspiring example of resilience and turning tragedy into what seems opportunity for Ukraine. I was going to ask Yuliana 2 or 3 questions, but I actually think, and I hope you would all agree, that what you shared stands for itself, and I would just love to leave it as it is and say a big, big thank you to you for coming here, especially in such a time, and presenting us with something that really gets us moving, hopefully, and want to maybe encourage the audience to check out the wonderful work that Yuliana and their team and all the fellow speakers before her were doing, and say thank you for your attention, and hope you continue to enjoy Change Now. Thank you.
Thank you.